We will prepare here some background visuals for PowerPoint or Keynote for a document of presentation. You already have a template with you. The measurements are 1280 by 720 pixels. These measurements correspond to a full HD visual. So make sure in PowerPoint or Keynote that you really use the ratio 69, which is the best when it comes to presentation documents. So there are different things you can do with Photoshop. I cannot show you everything you can do, but again, this is a basic presentation of what you can achieve with only a few layers in order to create something. When it comes to your own concept, I mean, you might have some specific colors or color schemes, so this is important to respect. In my case, just to show you as a reminder, I had a header here. As you can see, I have a color scheme. It looks like a rainbow. So what I will use is this picture that covers like my color scheme actually. So I have my template open and this file open. That was a picture I used, but I don't want to use this specific picture for a document of presentation because I can recognize hands and I want something more abstract actually. So this is why I picked another picture. So starting from this picture, I'm gonna duplicate this layer into my presentation template document. So there you go. I'm gonna close this file. I'm gonna close this file too, and this one since it was just a reference. All right. Again, Command T, Control T. Depending if you're on Mac or PC, you don't have to hold the Shift key when you reduce or enlarge. So this is free transform. By the way, you have access to it by the Edit menu, free transform. So you see the shortcut is always written next to the action you wanna take. All right, so I have my picture here. I'm gonna rename my layer by double clicking on it. I'm gonna name it image. So this is my picture of reference. I'm gonna use different layers and folders as well to organize my layers because I want to create 3 different backgrounds with the same Photoshop file. I can have everything in one simple document. I just want to add a little filter to this because to me I would like it to be a bit blurry, so I'm gonna go under the filter. Oh, sorry, I didn't select my layer, my mistake. So I click on my layer here, filter. We're just gonna see at a few options here. So blur, the Gaussian blur is the more one of the most popular filter people are using in Photoshop. So of course it's gonna blur the image. You have a radius, so the more you add, the blurrier it is. So this is one option here. I'm gonna click cancel. So just so you can see filter, blur. There's also lens blur, radial blur. Radial means it is in a circle way. I'm gonna just show you the motion blur here quickly. As you can see, you can put an angle. I have 45 degrees. You can already see the effect. If I put 0, it's going to be horizontal totally. If I put 90, it's going to be vertical. So that's something that could interest you if you want to create a specific effect, a motion blur. But in my case, I will go back to the Gaussian blur. There's also a noise option, which could be nice. Adding noise to a visual, you can see the effect. You can use uniform, Gaussian, monochromatic, or not. That could be cool. That could be cool. Something you can add to your picture. So again, I want to do just a simple basic Gaussian blur here. So filter, Gaussian blur. So there you go. Oh, sorry. So as you can understand, what I want to do here is to make sure that I have a generic background, but it is still personalized as it matches my concept, my color scheme. So the first slide I want to create, the first background for a slide I want to create is one with a box created for a cover page. So I'm going to use the rectangle tool here to create a rectangle. As you can see, it was not centered to begin with, but it's okay. I drawn it and I'm going to use my move tool to make sure to move my object in the middle, and you're gonna feel it. It's gonna lock to the middle, and you can change the color in the properties panel that's appearing as soon as you create a shape. So you could go in the swatches, gradient, or you can click here and decide the color you want to use for your rectangle. But in my case, I want to keep it white. I'm going to tell you why. It's because I want to have use my own color on my document of presentation. I just want to use a bit of opacity, transparency here, so I can change the opacity of my layer. So you see there's a bit of transparency. By the way, if you use different colors, different color instead of white, you can always play with this, like your layer type. And in some cases, it could be interesting, but white, I cannot, of course, multiply white with my colors. So I'm going to keep it normal, just putting down the opacity a bit. And the last thing I want to do is add just a little very basic drop shadow. In this case, you have to go under the layer menu and then choose layer style, drop shadow. We have seen that in another tutorial. So you can modify the opacity of the shadow, the distance from the shape, and then the spread is going to be bigger than the shape if I spread my shadow, and then the size of it is going to affect the blurriness of my shadow. So as long as you have the preview box tick here, you're going to see directly on your screen how it's going to apply. So that's fine for me. So this is going to be my first background. Okay, so just going to click here. Now I need to reuse that layer for my next image I want to create. So if you want to duplicate that, you can select your layer, you click on it and you drag it on the plus sign, the little square with a plus sign. You drag it on that, and it's going to create a copy of this layer, which is pretty cool. And you can always move your layers. Now I just selected it, I clicked on it, and I dragged it down. Why? It's because I want to put my original with shift key. I'm going to click on the rectangle. I want to select those two and put them into one folder. So you have to select your layers, okay, holding the shift key, and then click on the little icon there so you can create a group of objects, or of layers. I'm going to double click on that and name it cover. It's going to be my cover actually. So I can hide those layers. I'm going to use this one, and I need another layer. So I clicked on the plus sign here to create another layer, which is going to be underneath. So I have to bring it down here. So I have the copy of my picture here, and I have an empty layer. So what I want to do is use a part of this gradient, but I want to make it fade to a more uniform color. So I'm just going to use this tool here, like the eyedropper tool. With this, as you can see, if you click and drag on the bottom left in your tool panel, you have the color I just selected by clicking in my picture. As you can see, it changes the foreground color. So I want to have an idea of the color I want to pick. But if you click on the foreground color icon there, you have access to color picker. you can change the color you want to use. Actually, I want to use like a light purple color, almost pink actually. So I'm gonna click OK. So I'm gonna hide this image layer for 1 second. So I am on my empty layer here. I'm gonna choose edit in the menu, fill, edit fill. All right, because I want to fill my layer with my foreground color actually. So look here, contents. You can choose foreground, which is my light purple. Background would be white. I don't want to do that. Or you can pick a color from here, directly from here. But because I already picked it as a foreground color, I'm going to choose foreground color. Then click OK. So this is the color I want. And I want this layer, my image here, to blend into my pink or light purple color. So what I want to do here is to add a mask. So select your layer here, and in the layers panel there's an icon here, a rectangle with a circle in it. You click once there, it creates what we call a mask, and a mask helps you to hide a part of your layer. Because it's all white now, that means it shows everything for now. So just as a quick example, if I use the paintbrush tool and if I paint using a black color with a big brush, if I paint, now you see I'm actually hiding a part of my layer. So if you look at your layer mask in your layers panel, you're going to see there's a black part. That's where I painted in black. So it hides part of my layer, but it's not erased. Okay, it's not erased, it's just hidden, which is pretty useful. But I don't want to do that exactly. I want to use the gradient tool here. So with the gradient tool, at the top I have options. If I click there, I have options, but I want to use the black and white, basic one. I can use a linear gradient or a radial gradient. So in order to apply the gradient to the mask, not the layer itself, but to the layer mask, okay, I just have to click and drag, and it's gonna apply, it's gonna hide a part of it and show a part of it. So you can click and drag different places on your layer to see how it looks when you hide a part of your image. So in this case, it's pretty much what I want. I'm gonna drag a bit more. All right, so that's not so bad, but it is still too dark because this is my light background I'm creating. So if I click on my layer, the opacity, you remember we have played with this just a few minutes ago. I'm gonna bring it down a bit, okay, until I'm satisfied with the look of it. So that's gonna do it for my light background, but I still do need a copy again of that background image for my third picture. So I'm gonna click on it and drag on the plus sign in order to make a duplicate of this. But before I finish this work, I'm gonna select this layer and this one. So these two, I'm gonna put them into a folder. So it's gonna create a group here. Double click on it. I'm gonna name it light as a reference to my light background. I'm gonna drag it up here. So as you can see, I have cover, light so far, and I'm almost done. I just need to create a new layer again, an empty layer. In this case, what I want to do is actually create a I want to create a dark background. So I'm gonna pick a different color, but you don't have to use this eyedropper tool, but I like to use that when I want to select a specific color coming from my picture. So I'm gonna say, okay, this one's gonna be perfect. All right, I'm gonna hide this. On layer 2, choose Edit, Fill. In my case, I'm gonna choose foreground color, but again, you can choose your color by clicking here and finding your own color. But in my case, I already have chosen my foreground color. I'm gonna click OK. Now, I'm gonna rename my layer, dark, and in this case, I'm gonna go back to my layer. I'm gonna modify my mask. So I click on my layer mask here. You see like there are some lines around it telling me that I am on it. I'm just gonna click and drag with my layer tool, and look what I do prefer as an effect. This seems pretty good, and again I'm gonna change the opacity of my layer so I have something that's great for me. All right, now I'm clicking on this layer, the second one underneath. Click on the little folder here, so I have a third group, and I'm gonna name it dark. So if you did follow me properly, I had put my first picture background, a rectangle with a drop shadow in my cover group. If I open the eye here, I have those two layers in this group folder. If I hide the layer and then open the light one, I'm gonna see the two layers in the light one. Okay, and same thing with the dark. I have my two different layers here in this group. So basically what I have to do if I want to prepare my files, I'm gonna do File, Export. You can do Save for Web, but because it's not for the web, it's for presentation, you can just choose Export As and choose JPEG for your background. There you go. So JPEG, make sure you have a good quality, 100%. You keep the size, of course. You don't want to change that, and then you export. So that's the first one. And you can do the same thing with the light layers, combined into one group here. If you want, you can also choose Save As directly. Save on my computer, and then from there you can choose, instead of Photoshop, of course, you choose JPEG. That will do also. So you have the choice. You can export, or you can just do File, Save As. You chose JPEG, and in the proper folder, Images folder, you save all three JPEG files you have to save.